Good morning. My name is Karen Seymour-Ells, and I serve as a trustee here at DuPage Unitarian Universalist Church. I would like to welcome everyone to our open and inclusive virtual community this morning. As Unitarian Universalists, we hold that there are many spiritual paths to truth and meaning, and we pledge to support one another as we walk those paths. We are so glad you were able to find us this morning and join us for our live streamed service. Please check the church website at dupageUUchurch.org for updates. If you search under DuPage UU Church on Facebook, you will find a number of ways to be in community with us as well. We would love for you to join us today at noon for Science Sunday. It can be viewed live on our YouTube channel. Oh, it's Zoom today. Sorry. It's Zoom today for a more interactive experience. The instructions can be found in the email that was sent to your household and your order of service. Next Sunday, we will again have our Zoom coffee hour. Check your email or the website for, not the website? Check your email for details. Both of those have been well attended, and we would love for you to join us.
Oh, the green rolling hills of West Virginia are the nearest thing to heaven that I know. Though the times are sad and drear, and I cannot linger here, they'll keep me and never let me go. My daddy said, don't ever be a miner, for a miner's grave is all you'll ever know. 'Cause the hard times everywhere, I can't find a dime to spare. These are the worst times I've ever known. But the green rolling hills of West Virginia are the nearest thing to heaven that I know. Oh, the times are sad and drear, and I cannot linger here. They'll keep me and never let me go.
We light our chalice this morning as a reminder that we are all a part of the interconnected web of life. We understand that as long as the basic needs of others are not met, our work is not yet done. May I be the tiniest nail in the house of the universe, tiny but useful. May I stay forever in the stream. May I look down upon the windflower and the bull thistle and the coreopsis with the greatest respect. Mary Oliver. Now please join us in singing hymn number 121 from the Gray Hymnal. I could be doing this wrong. Am I doing this wrong? Okay. We'll build a land.
Come, build a land.
Please join me in saying our spoken affirmation, followed by our sung affirmation. Love is the spirit of this church, and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. On the rough, wet grass of the backyard, my father and mother have spread quilts. We all lie there. My mother, my father, my uncle, my aunt, and I too am lying there. First, we were all sitting up, then one of us would lay down, and then we would all lay down on our stomachs, on our sides, or on our backs, and they have kept on talking. They are not talking much, and the talk is quiet, of nothing in particular, of nothing at all in particular, of nothing at all. The stars are wide and alive. They seem each like a smile of great sweetness, and they all seem very near. All my people are larger bodies than mine, quiet, with voices gentle and meaningless, like the voices of sleeping birds. James Agee, Knoxville, summer 1915.
It is time to gather. Today's service is about a journey that a group of members from our church took to a small town in West Virginia. They went to a small coal mining town in the Appalachian Mountains. In the area of these mountains, south of New York, down to Georgia and Alabama, is known as Appalachia. This story is the author's remembrances of Appalachia while growing up. However, since that time, coal mines have shut down, and there have been many hits to the economy. So for how simple the story depicts life at that time, you might consider it to be even more extreme now. Appalachia, The Voices of Sleeping Birds by Cynthia Rylant. In a certain part of the country called Appalachia, you will find dogs named Prince or King living in little towns with names like Coal City and Sally's Backbone. These dogs run free, being country dogs, and their legs are full of muscles from running rabbits up mountains or from following boys who push old bikes against the hill roads they call hollows. These are mostly good dogs and can be trusted. The owners of these dogs who live in Appalachia have names like Mamie and Boyd and Ole, and they probably have lived in Appalachia all their lives. Many of them were born in coal camps in tiny houses which stood on poles, and on the sides of which you could draw a face with your finger because coal dust had settled on their walls like snow. The owners of these dogs grew up more used to trees than sky, and inside them had this feeling of mystery about the rest of the world they couldn't see because mountains came up so close to them and blocked their view like a person standing in a doorway. They weren't sure about going beyond these mountains, going until the land becomes flat or ocean, and so they stayed where they knew for sure how the sun would come up in the morning and set again at night. The owners of these dogs work pretty hard. Many of them are coal miners because the mountains in Appalachia are full of coal, which people want, And if you are brave enough to travel 2 miles down into solid dark earth to get it, someone will pay you money for your trouble. The men and women who mine the coal probably had fathers and grandfathers who were miners before them. Maybe some thought they didn't have any choice but to be a miner, living in between or on the sides of these mountains, and seeing no way to go off and become doctors or teachers, and having no wish to become soldiers. Those who do go off, who find some way to become doctors or teachers, nearly always come back to the part of Appalachia where they grew up. They're never good at explaining why. Some will say they had brothers and sisters still here and they missed them, but most will shake their heads and have that look on their face like you see on dogs who wander from home and being lost for a couple weeks, and who search out that corner of the yard they knew that they had to find again before they could get a good sleep. Those who don't live in Appalachia and don't understand it sometimes make the mistake of calling these people hillbillies. It isn't a good word for them. They probably would prefer Appalachians. Like anyone else, they're sensitive about words. The houses in Appalachia are as different as houses anywhere. Some are wood and some are brick. Some have real flowers in pots on the porch, and some have plastic ones. Some have shiny new cars parked in their driveways, and some have only the parts of old cars parked in theirs. Most have running water inside the house, with sinks in their kitchens, washing machines in their basements, and pretty blue bathrooms. But a few still have no water pipes inside their house, and they carry their water from an old well or a creek over the hill, and they wash themselves in metal tubs and build themselves wooden toilets in the backyards, which most of them call outhouses. Inside their homes, you'll see photographs on the walls, mostly of their children or their families from long ago, and you'll see pretty things they have made hanging on these walls. Clocks carved from wood, sometimes in the shape of their state, or wreaths made from corn husks. Some will have pictures that they bought at the department store when they went into town. In their bedrooms, there are usually 1 or 2 or 3 quilts someone in the family made. And in the winter, these are on the bed, but usually not on top. And in the summer, they stay folded up on shelves in small dark closets, with smell of old wood and mothballs. The good dogs who live in Appalachia are not allowed on these beds, and most of them aren't even allowed in the house at all, because they have their own houses. The kitchens of these houses where Mamie or Boyd or Ole live almost always smell like fried bacon or chicken, and on top of the stove there are little plates of food with leftovers from breakfast or lunch or supper. And you can help yourself to a biscuit or maybe a piece of cornbread crumbled into a glass of buttermilk or some cold fried squash. What you don't eat up, the good old dogs outside will get, and they're happiest when it's the sausage gravy no one could finish. Morning in these houses in Appalachia is quiet and full of light, and the mountains out the window look new, like God made them just that day. Night in these houses is thick. The mountains wear heavy shawls of fog, and giant moth flaps on the porch by the porch light, while cars cut through the dark hollows like burrowing moles. If it is Sunday, nearly everyone will go to church. Most of these Appalachians are Baptists, but many are Methodists or Presbyterians, and some are Catholics. And if the church is a Baptist church in the country, you can count on these people wearing their good clothes. Women in dresses, men in suit and ties, and babies dressed up like pitchers. There'll be a lot of singing in that church, and maybe some crying for joy, and after the service, people will linger in the yard, talking, till the women say it's time to eat, and then they'll go home and sit around a table spread with potatoes and beans and meat and good hot coffee or sweet iced tea. And they will eat until they can eat no more, except for the piece of lemon pound cake that they save some room for. Sunday afternoon, they'll go to the houses of their relatives to visit, and will sit around a kitchen table again, talking, or on the front porch. They might do a little work for their mothers who live alone, carrying a big box to the shed for her, or taking care of the nest of bees hiding near the basement door. Sunday night, some of them will go to church again. In the summer, many of the women like to can. It seems their season. They sit on kitchen chairs on back porches, and they talk of their lives while they snap beans or cut up cucumbers for pickling. It's a good day for them to catch up on things and to have time together, alone, for neither the children nor the men come around much when there's canning going on. In the winter, many of the men like to hunt, and this seems like their season. They take off into the woods together, their good dogs running ahead, and they hunt rabbit and sometimes deer, and they talk about things and feel happy and free. And if they shoot something, they bring it back home and skin it and cut it up and put it in the freezer to cook and eat later. The children love all the seasons. They go down by the creek into the woods or up the dirt roads with their good old dogs, and they feel more important than anything else in these Appalachian mountains. And probably they think often of God, since they know the clouds and the trees better than anyone. They have seen what God can do. In summer, if you walk the roads, you will smell honeysuckle and the odor of cows and the gritty aroma that dirt roads in the mountains send up your nose. And the dogs will have a different smell every day. The men and women and children who live in Appalachia have no sourness about them, and though they are shy towards outsiders, they will wave to you if you drive by in your car, whether they know your face or not. Most would probably rather not meet anyone new, but once they're used to you, you'll find them bringing you bags of tomatoes from their gardens and sometimes a cherry cobbler. Most of them are thinkers, because these mountains inspire that. But they could never find the words to tell you of these thoughts that they have. They talk to you of their corn or of their cows instead, and they keep the thoughts to themselves. When they die, they will want the preacher at their church to say the words at the funeral, and they will want to be buried in the Appalachian Mountains with their families. They will want someone to put flowers on their graves on Memorial Day. While they are living, they will look forward to spring so that they can go to the Southern States store and buy packages of seeds to plant. And they will look forward to summer so they can work outside among the sunflowers, repairing their fences. And they will look forward to fall so they can rock on their porches and stare toward shimmering painted mountains. And they look forward to winter so they can build their fires and watch the hollows fill up with snow, safe till the next year begins. Prince or king running the mountains like the good old dogs in Appalachia.
Good morning. I'm Neil Lichtman, your Chair of Denominational Affairs. In early 2019, the committee decided to see if we could create a UUA College of Social Justice journey for members of our congregation. By the way, this college has no campus. It's conceptual. So first, what is a UUA College of Social Justice journey? It's a journey whose mission is to inspire and sustain faith-based action for social justice through experiential learning. The college offers different kinds of journeys. The journey locations available for adults are the Arizona-Mexico border, West Virginia, Honduras, or El Salvador. In June 2019, a team of 8 members of our congregation drove to West Virginia for a week. How did we choose West Virginia? First, the Denominational Affairs Committee solicited input from the college. Then we called a few congregations that had done successful journeys. We also considered, given this would be our first journey, the easiest location to get to and comparatively low individual costs. That was $440 a person for a week. and the modest skills we possessed. The journey to Beards Fork, West Virginia was the best match. Then we recruited with statements on our Sunday wall, in orders of service, in periodic congregational news emails, and flyers distributed in Creeves Hall over 3 Sundays. We were informed that we must commit to 10 journeyers to get approval. Well, temporarily we had 12. We ended up with 8. Fortunately, the college gave us a green light anyway. The College of Social Justice describes this particular journey as transition from the boom of coal mining to an uncharted future. Before arrival, journeyers were encouraged to watch documentaries and read books and articles. For example, a video, Why the Poorest County in West Virginia Has Faith in Donald Trump. And in light of the success of the book Hillbilly Elegy by J.D. Vance, that stereotypes Appalachian culture very negatively, we were to read a critique, What You Are Getting Wrong About Appalachia. Now, a very brief word about the town of Beards Fork where we lodged, and yes, that closed elementary school is where we lodged and did half our work. Beards Fork was once a town of 1,000 adults and kids. Today it has officially 199. This 80% drop is indicative of the job losses in coal mining and other extractive industries in West Virginia. It was, and still is, a town of whites and blacks who live like each other and near each other, but segregated. The 80% drop in coal mining jobs was partially due to 3 business factors. 1, automation. 2, losing competitively to natural gas. And 3, mountaintop, or otherwise known as strip mining. But that's not the whole story. While coal companies were losing business, they did not see it as their responsibility to level with workers on the declining competitive future of coal. Unions that had once been legendary in improving compensation did not level with or prepare workers for the inevitable future of many fewer coal jobs. Politicians made false promises, but it appeared the miners and their families trusted them. The past was one of boys leaving school at 16, going directly into the mines, and eventually making up to $60,000 a year with no education and minimal literacy. Today, West Virginia has only 1.8 million people. It's 96% white, just 4% black. Based on complex analysis, the population should be 44% higher. Many miners and their families fled. Few college graduates stay. Its per capita income is 48th among our 50 states, and U.S. News magazine ranks it dead last for future employment. That said, it was being on the ground at Beards Fork, meeting both activists and local citizens, that brought the above into sharp focus for us. We were the official guests of the Southern Appalachian Labor School, which we often referred to as SALS. Pat Lichtman will take us into a week at Beards Fork after a bit of West Virginia coal miners' music.
and she holds me, keeps me from worry and woe. Well, they took everything that she gave, now they're gone. But I die on this mountain's my home. I was young on this mountain, I'm old. And I knew every holler, every cool swimming hole. Till one night I'm laying down, woke up to find that my childhood was over, I went down in the mine. I was born on this mountain's my home, and she holds me, keeps me from worry and woe. Well, they took everything that she gave, now they're gone. But I die on this mountain's my home.
Good morning. I am Pat Lichtman. Later in this service, 4 of us will share personal reflections. However, I will briefly describe who we met, where we stayed, and the work we did on this week-long School of Social Justice journey. When we arrived in Beards Fork on Saturday evening, we met Diva Jones and Rob Eller. Diva was the main contact in Boston who creates College of Social Justice Journeys. She joined us for one day. Rob Eller was our facilitator, a teacher from Milwaukee, a UU and seasoned journey leader. On Sunday, we attended the UU Church in Charleston and later met their minister. We then met the leader of Call to Action for Racial Equality in West Virginia. Towards the end of our visit to Beards Fork, we met with a young activist from Headwaters Defense who helps relocate people for work, obtains health care for PCB-damaged people, and cleanup of PCBs. We were officially the guests of Sal's, run by 1960s radical John David. Sal's owns a number of rundown buildings in the area bought for nearly nothing that he was giving purpose to. And he had obtained a grant from HUD to build new apartments for low-income people. We met John at the beginning of our visit and at the end when he hosted us at his home. He was a truth teller, disabusing us of our solutions for West Virginia today. We slept in dorms. We slept in dorm-like conditions with 1960s bunk beds, dated furniture, and barely functional showers. But we had a wonderful kitchen stocked with food for the week. We prepared all our own meals and did this in teams. The most memorable dinner was prepared by Robert, Peter, and Bill, who made awesome fried chicken, but were unnecessarily apologetic for hockey puck biscuits. Another local personality was Brenda, a longtime Vista volunteer, who manages the HUD-supported apartment complex along with a staff of 3. Rob Eller had warned us that our work should blend in with the local pace. We entered the workflow mid-morning and would leave at 5 p.m. Rob said, "You are here primarily to listen, make no judgments, and in other words, go with the flow." The work we did. First, building a goat house. Yes, a goat house. And here you see 3 of our members working on that. Cleaning and organizing 2 offices, one that had been unoccupied for more than 20 years, crammed to the ceiling with paper and supplies. Cleaning and decluttering an unoccupied apartment. Distributing food at a food pantry. Doing carpentry and electrical work and replacing a toilet. Seeding a small garden, vegetable garden, at the apartment complex. That said, the most important aspect of our week was immersion in the culture of Beards Fork, especially meeting a whole range of local people, walking up through the holler and taking the time to chat and to hear their stories. For sure, I want to mention how enjoyable it was to be with 7 other members of DuPage UU Church for 7 days and nights. We had fun, helped one another, and worked well together. The reflections to follow by Anne, Barb, Robert, and Carl will tell stories of our projects and the people.
Good morning. I'm Ann Ariano, and I made a commitment to become a UU College of Social Justice West Virginia journeyer without a clear understanding of what I was getting into. But ambiguity and many unanswered questions notwithstanding, I felt comfortable and even energized by the open-endedness of it all. I read some of the background material on the type of project this might be and still had no clear picture, but felt confident in the overall mission of the UU Service Committee and College of Social Justice and the people running them. And honestly, I was intrigued that Neil, Pat, and then others were open to forging ahead into the unknown. Personal growth. And this idea of immersion kept coming up. What would that mean in this case? As some details emerged and more resources were made available, I watched and listened and read. Then there I was in Beards Fork, West Virginia, in our dorm, adjacent to a community center building in which we'd do some work, and with a small garden and some local animal friends just outside our door. This type of experience isn't for everyone. There really was very little structure. It was very go with the flow, and not only did that turn out to be okay, it was where the immersion part of it played out, where I learned that we were not there to swoop in with solutions or to be in charge or to leave with a task completed. I learned sometimes new information and sometimes that I was mistaken about my perception of old information. For the frustration I might have felt in not having a defined task, I was engaged by and rewarded with conversations with locals eager to share their stories. I witnessed their energy and very real, scary, unfair, day in and day out life challenges. I was amazed at their determination and positive attitude in the face of 100 years of being used and denied and squashed by business and government in their state, in their hollers. It peeled back a few layers of the onion to expose the broad range of existence that makes up this United States. It was an important peek at life and at people in a place we hear about but don't experience firsthand in our urban, suburban bubble. It was a reminder to be aware, to pay attention, to find ways to listen and to act. And our band of 8 DuPage UU Church adults in a dorm-like setting, morning and night, and working side by side all day. It was fun, so very interesting. We cooked, we cleaned, we bantered, we shared meaningful observations and conversation with each other, with our quiet, impressively wise guide, Robert, and with various other passionate local organization leaders who regaled us with data and stories. Sad, happy, enlightening, inspiring, maddening data and stories. We were silly sometimes, and one of us, Bill Daw, gifted us an abandoned item, now repurposed into a lovely chalice. I gained a deeper understanding of the DuPage UU people I knew. I gained a new understanding of those who I hadn't known. It was all a good thing, all around. I was glad, too, that I nudged Carl to consider the trip. It was a fantastic shared and spiritual experience for us. Thank you, fellow journeyers. Thank you, UU College of Social Justice, for helping me push my limits as I continue my search for truth and meaning.
Good morning. My name is Barbara Roos, and I wanted to share some of my thoughts and experiences about the journey to West Virginia that we took in June of 2019. Overall, I found this to be a valuable, enriching, and a really wonderful experience, at times in ways I didn't expect. In recent years, I had become more aware of the poverty, economic problems, and opioid epidemic in West Virginia. So when Neil presented this journey as a possibility for our church community, I was very interested. Even though certain things weren't crystal clear and I didn't know some of the folks very well, I was eager to learn more about West Virginia and to provide a service. In preparation for our trip, our group of 8 was provided with some excellent materials, books, articles, and films on YouTube and Netflix, and I did my best to utilize these before we left. Then we were on our way. After arriving in Charleston, the capital, we drove to Beards Fork, which is a holler of about 200 people. Small communities in Appalachia are called hollers. We stayed in a dorm facility in Beards Fork and worked there and in the communities of Gawley Bridge and Oak Hill, along with folks from SALS, the Southern Appalachian Labor School, a local organization which does great work in these communities. Some of the individuals we met were part of VISTA and AmeriCorps. Even though I was eager to get to work upon our arrival, one of the most valuable things I learned was the importance of listening to people. When we arrived at Oak Hill on about our second day, the staff there were not immediately prepared for our arrival. I happened to be with Robert and Ann, and it turned out that we spent a lot of time listening to Joe, a board member of SALS, and Jesse, another local VISTA worker. Both came from disadvantaged backgrounds and had dealt with challenges in their lives. They were eager to share their stories, including what they had accomplished and what their future goals were. They were especially proud of their radio station, which was newly launched. During the almost 2 hours we were with them, the issue of national politics never came up, nor did it come up for me with anyone during the trip, which was a little surprising. Another memorable experience for me was related to cleaning out an extremely cluttered, disorderly office at the Beards Fork Community Center. The office had belonged to the director of summer programs who had retired. Pat and I, and later Ann, cleaned out what appeared to be about 20 years' worth of documents, folders, various materials, and miscellaneous items. We filled about 115 garbage bags over 2 days, which Neil and the on-site staff person Artie tossed into the dumpster. The office looked 1,000 times better, and the staff felt like their work was much more manageable after this. However, in the course of cleaning the office, we discovered many duplicates of certain things, like holiday decorations and other supplies, many of which were never used and needed to be discarded due to their marginal or outdated condition. I found myself frustrated at what I considered to be a lot of waste, thinking that if things were better organized, there would be more efficiency and less waste. During our evening discussion, when we processed the events of the day, I shared my frustration with Robert Erler, who was the UUSC mentor who stayed with us during the trip. He was a soft-spoken and thoughtful man, and after I voiced my concerns, he paused and then shared the importance of also looking at how much we waste in other parts of our lives. For example, restaurants waste a tremendous amount of food, much of which has never been touched, and as well as leftover food often from overly sized portions that we are frequently served. I thought of the water that we waste in the shower before water gets hot, or being too quick to turn on the AC in the summer. Robert's gentle comments made me realize I should not be too quick to judge without also examining my own life and habits. I learned another lesson about how things don't always go as planned, and that what I thought was a good idea wasn't something that materialized. Before the trip, I had purchased what I thought was a very nice assortment of books that I was eager to donate to the Beardsford Community Center, which also operated a summer program. After we had done a lot of sorting and organizing, it turned out that there was actually an overabundance of books, and it was obvious that more books weren't needed. I was told that parents were always encouraged to take books home, but it eventually occurred to me that some parents or grandparents, who are frequently the caregivers, may be illiterate and don't want to take books. So I ended up taking my box of books home and donating them to a charity which helps refugees. Another very valuable thing for me was getting to know the 7 other people in our group, a few of whom I did not know previous to the trip. I think we were fortunate that we all got along well and were able to live in a communal setting for a week, which included preparing meals, cleaning up, and sharing bathrooms. There was no TV and erratic internet service, so we talked a lot and helped each other out whenever possible. I think I'm always going to feel a special bond with Neil, Pat, Robert, Ann, Carl, Peter, and Bill, who were a great group. All in all, the journey to West Virginia was a great experience, and I hope to go on another similar trip in the future. Thank you.
There's a chimney so tall that says Aragon Mill, but there's no smoke at all coming out of the stack, for the mill has pulled out and it ain't coming back. And the only sound I hear is the cry of the wind as it blows through the town. Weave and spin, weave and spin. There's no children at all in the narrow, empty streets since the loons have all gone. It's so quiet I can't sleep. Now I'm too old to change, and I'm too young to die, and there's no place to go for my old man and I. And the only sound I hear is the cry of the wind as it blows through the town. Weave and spin, weave and spin. Yes, the only sound I hear is the cry of the wind as it blows through the town. Weave and spin, weave and spin.
I found the UUSC volunteer immersion experience to be transformative to my understanding of life in Appalachian West Virginia. Volunteer immersion experiences have often been transformative and pivotal in my life, especially young adult adventuring and retirement adventuring. They're both internally transformative by changing my preconceived ideas, and externally transformative in terms of a broader network of relationships formed. For example, when I was 22, I joined Extension Volunteers, a VISTA-like organization sponsored by the Catholic Church. Even though in my training, Saul Alinsky said we were just a bunch of naive do-gooders with white savior or hero complexes who just go in with preconceived ideas about how to help that don't really fit the long-term needs, and then we leave. Yet, we did impact people's lives in ways that wouldn't have happened otherwise, got away from our usual routines, and blossomed emotionally, and built skills in leadership, team building, self-knowledge, self-reliance, and in my case, learning fun skills in Colorado like skiing, ice skating, guitar, snowshoeing, and mountain hiking that I would never have experienced in my hometown of Detroit. But let's get back to some of the highlights of the UUSC volunteer experience. Our group leader, Robert Eller, emphasized that the structure for our week together was loose, with no preconceived ideas about what the people might need us to do. He encouraged us to use the time for relationship building and not just work. On the slide, you can see a picture of Ann and I taking Robert's advice to heart and talking for several hours with some of the staff at the local radio station housed in the old 3-story historic Oak Hill School being rehabbed by the Southern Appalachia Labor School. It was sobering to hear of how the staff held many part-time jobs simultaneously to try to make ends meet with the low-wage, no-benefits employment opportunities available. The school building was being turned into an amazing community resource center. You can see from the listing on the picture that it housed many programs, including a food pantry, WAGE radio station, and youth job training and volunteer programs, with dorm rooms in the school to house the volunteers. The loose schedule allowed us to help on the most pressing needs. Several of us worked long hours to reorganize the dry goods for the food pantry storage that had been thrown into disarray by flooding from a leaking roof. Each day, we broke into sub-teams and chose among several sites to work at, doing light carpentry, cleaning, and decluttering, and creating usable space in buildings being rehabbed. Then we had a structured discussion at the end of each day to digest and learn from what we had experienced. It was fun, gelling as a team and using the unique skills of each of us. I learned about the informal bartering economy that people developed to survive, fixing cars and appliances for each other, and the powerful effect of providing job and leadership opportunities for youth with background issues that might include drug and legal problems. The help in completing their GEDs while working, learning construction, electrician, and plumbing skills reminds me of our wonderful SMILE project here at DUC. The general manager supervising the work at the school proudly talked about how he had been saved from a life of addiction and unemployment by the chance to learn construction and leadership at the program as a team. I learned about the systemic colonizing by the extraction industries that exploited and then left a legacy of poisonous pollution and chemicals and environmental destruction, including the current new danger posed by the fracking industry. If you've read the book Hillbilly Elegy, you might get the impression that a white conservative culture of poverty was the problem. But in preparation for the trip, we were encouraged to read another balancing perspective in the book, What You Are Getting Wrong About Appalachia, that highlighted the cultural and racial diversity and progressive movements of Appalachia. You can see from this mural in the gymnasium at the Oak Hill School a picture of United Mine Workers Union organizer Mother Jones. Note the guns in the crowd. These were serious battles for progressive causes. As Mother Jones once said, "I'm not a humanitarian, I'm a hellraiser. Pray for the dead and fight like hell for the living." In the course of the week, we heard several activists present on issues and problems facing West Virginia, including Brandon Richardson of Headwaters Defense, who talked to us about the devastating effects of PCB oil pollution from the manufacturing of electrical transformers on the health of local communities like the town of Minden, called the most toxic town in the United States. It has high rates of cancer, reproductive problems, and long delays in cleanup efforts. It is a Superfund site, but there are delays. For example, in June of 2019, there were 1,344 Superfund sites on the national priorities list in the United States. 48 additional sites have been proposed for entry on the list, and as of June 2019, only 413 sites have been certified as cleaned up and removed from the list. I should also mention that we did quite a bit of work at a HUD low-income subsidized housing apartment complex associated with the Southern Appalachian Labor School. It used to be dilapidated and known as a drug user haven. It was rehabbed and is now operating successfully for the several years now. And we helped getting it cleaned up and organized for a HUD site inspection. Here is a picture of the goat shelter we were building because the goats kept the local grass under control, and the community garden we were helping to plant. And here is our group on the first day getting oriented in the parking lot. We were there early in the summer season of volunteer groups coming in, and most of the summer volunteer groups were youth groups, so the age and experience we brought with us was much appreciated, as we could self-direct and organize things like building a goat shelter without constant supervision. As author and advocate Brian Stevenson once said, "Engage in action and do not fall into the easy and common practice of just studying and bemoaning the problem. Get proximate to the problem. If you want to address societal problems, you must get proximate to the issues and the people most directly affected. Move your congregation from abstract to concrete knowledge of the issues involved in poverty, racism, and mass incarceration, and in doing so, move to effective action. This work emphasizes the need for congregants to be in relationship with marginalized people. In summary, I highly recommend participating in UUSC projects and supporting its work in whatever way we can. UUSC projects' impact goes beyond the specific support being requested and builds and strengthens transformative opportunities for us as members of the church. After all, isn't offering opportunities for positive transformation what church is all about? And having fun and making friends while we're at it? Thank you.
Hi, I'm Carl Nash. While there is some sense of despair in the citizenry of West Virginia, I got a sense of hope from some inspiring community leaders who are making an impact at the local level where politicians are stepping back or who have already stepped back from their responsibilities. Specifically, we met with a community advocate from the Southern Appalachian Labor School, a minister, a Black activist, an environmental activist, a manager of an apartment complex, and a manager at a community center being created out of an old schoolhouse. Their personal initiative makes suburban me seem like a bystander in a world in need. They are working it, however. The apartment manager turned around the apartments from a drug-infested, prostitute-based, police-visited location where neighbors wanted it torn down to a residence where everyone knew each other, were friends, where children played outside, and with a relaxation area where residents would and did drop by to simply chat. They even had a small community mascot, a goat they affectionately called Baby. This manager was a mom to the residents of the apartments. Her financial gain, if any, from her job was not apparent, but her happiness and satisfaction from supporting and nurturing others was so impressive. Her compassion and loving humanness were just inspiring. At the community center, the manager worked hard against building deterioration and financial adversity to implement a vision where townsfolk could come by, get food from a pantry, purchase books, socialize, talk on a radio station, and more. Some of the hardworking advocates we met had in fact endured and rose above some of life's serious challenges, from addiction and broken relationships, but were now doing tremendous good for the community. They were so much bigger than themselves and the work they did. These people were giving back to their community. I do believe also that our group made significant contributions. Without the temporary, significant physical help of this group, it is possible that the apartment would not have passed the imminent HUD inspection that was necessary to subsidize the residents, allowing them. I had expected to be merely painting, hammering nails, replacing in window panes, but this was so far beyond that.
Please join us in singing hymn number 168, One More Step.
One more word, we will say one
Before my closing words, I'd like to first thank the team. It was the willingness of the team to give the journey a week of their lives, living by guidelines of listening, learning, and listening more, as we performed small tasks that had large meaning for the people we met. Thank you, team. And I want to thank the other members of our congregation who performed or presented today, provided input, or helped mightily with production. Karen Seymour-Ells, Kelly Trombley-Freitag, Becky Trombley-Freitag, Jim Wharton, Vera Pellin, Scott Trombley-Freitag, Justin Hobbs, and a special thanks to Steve Cooper, who was our director and producer. So where does our congregation go from here? We may choose to say, been there, done that. However, another group of the willing could journey to Beard's Fork and begin a yearly DUUC tradition and ritual of going there. Or perhaps some of us who went to Beard's Fork could be joined by other members of our congregation to travel to the U.S.-Mexico border. A third action could be to use the journey model and find similar work we could do with a local organization in, well, say Aurora. Surely there are even more options. Reverend Walker has suggested that future journeys of any kind be placed under our Social Justice Committee, and that makes sense. If our team's journey to West Virginia inspires you in any way to suggest a second journey for our congregation, one that you are willing to create, recruit for, and lead, please let me know, and together we can plan the next steps.
Thank you, Neil. The offering in support of our church will now be taken and received. Go in Peace, Seeking Justice by Jim McGaw. When I say go in peace, I don't mean go in mindless oblivion. When I say go in peace, I don't mean go without challenging yourself or others. When I say go in peace, I don't mean go in utter ease and comfort. When I say go in peace, I mean go in peace, seeking justice. I mean, go in peace, committed to equal rights and opportunities for all. When I say go in peace, I mean, go in the peace that is created when together we build communities of true solidarity, deep compassion, and fierce, unrelenting love. Go in peace.